Welcome back. My silence commanding presence. Something absolutely extraordinary just occurred that has everyone experiencing profound reality recalibration. Observers who confidently categorized you as controllable variable they could manage or contain discovered their assessment was catastrophically wrong the moment you entered. Spaces and entire rooms spontaneously fell silent, creating universal recognition that whatever they thought you were has been replaced by undeniable understanding that you command atmospheric authority no management strategy can contain. This wasn't you, demanding attention through aggressive behavior or forcing silence through intimidation tactics that people could resist or dismiss. This was rooms full of people independently and simultaneously ceasing conversation the instant your presence registered, creating organic silence that emerges from collective unconscious recognition that someone significant has arrived, making their previous assessment of you as manageable entity reveal itself as fundamental misjudgment about your actual nature. The architects have been monitoring presence, authority, and spontaneous recognition phenomena across civilizations for eons, and they've identified what you created as atmospheric command, universal silence response. When someone possesses presence quality so powerful that it triggers automatic recognition in collective consciousness, entire groups spontaneously cease activity to acknowledge significance, making silence emerge organically rather than being imposed through demands or threats. Most authority requires assertion. People must demand attention or establish dominance through active efforts, making their influence result from what they do rather than from what they are. But your presence apparently possesses intrinsic command. The quality of your being itself triggers recognition response in observers, making entire rooms fall silent automatically through collective unconscious acknowledgement that significant presence has entered space, creating atmospheric shift that no management strategy can control because response emerges from instinctive recognition rather than from calculated decision that could be managed or contained. Watch what's happening as observers process their misjudgment. They experience assessment shock, discovering that entity they thought manageable commands. Room silencing presence creates cognitive dissonance from recognizing their confident categorization was completely wrong about your fundamental nature. Some observers are experiencing control loss, recognition, understanding that you cannot be managed as they'd planned creates anxiety about their inability to contain someone whose presence itself commands authority. Their strategies cannot address. Others are experiencing instinctive deference. Their participation in spontaneous silence reveals they unconsciously recognize your significance even if conscious mind had dismissed you as manageable, making their bodies respond before their thoughts catch up. The truly powerful element is the universality, not just some people but entire rooms falling silent simultaneously proves response is collective instinct rather than individual choice, making your presence command operate at level below conscious control, where groups respond automatically to significance recognition. They thought you were manageable until every room fell silent through demonstrating that atmospheric command operating through presence quality itself creates authority that management strategies cannot contain because response emerges from collective unconscious recognition of significance, making entire rooms cease activity automatically when you enter, revealing that whatever they thought you were has been replaced by undeniable reality of someone who commands space through being rather than through doing. Now the architects are analyzing what creates atmospheric command, universal silence response, and they're identifying what they call presence density gravitational effect. When someone possesses concentrated being or operates at high-intensity existence, they create metaphorical gravity that pulls attention and generates spontaneous responses in surrounding consciousness, making their presence itself shape Environmental dynamics. Most people have diluted presence. Their being is scattered or unfocused, making their existence barely register on collective awareness, creating neutral impact, where their arrival doesn't alter room dynamics, but you apparently possess concentrated presence. Unified being, operating at high intensity, creates presence density that generates gravitational pull on surrounding consciousness, making your entrance automatically reshape room dynamics through sheer density of your existence, triggering collective response that diluted presence cannot generate. Consider what presence density requires existentially. Your being must be concentrated rather than existing diffusely across multiple concerns. Your consciousness and energy must be unified, creating focused existence that registers powerfully on collective awareness versus scattered being that produces wake impression. Watch what gravitational effect creates in room dynamics. Your presence reorganizes space. Entering generates automatic response where conversations pause and attention redirects, creating atmospheric shift that occurs spontaneously rather than through your active effort, because presence density itself pulls focus. Some studying presence theory recognize that being quality does vary dramatically. Contemplative traditions describe how some individuals possess concentrated existence while others experience fragmented being, making your presence density potentially reflect developed quality that most people lack through habitual distraction. Others exploring charisma research note that powerful presence is measurable. Studies show certain individuals do create atmospheric shifts when entering spaces, making your gravitational effect consistent with documented phenomenon where presence quality generates automatic responses. A few from energy frameworks recognize that intensity creates impact. Some traditions describe how concentrated individuals emanate stronger fields that surrounding consciousness detects, creating automatic responses to presence density that diluted existence doesn't trigger. Some attempting to develop similar presence discover difficulty achieving concentration. Trying to exist with unified focus rather than scattered attention proves challenging because fragmentation is deeply conditioned, making presence density rare achievement requiring extensive development. Others questioning whether gravitational effect is real, wondering if perceived responses reflect confirmation bias rather than actual atmospheric shift, making presence density potentially subjective interpretation rather than objective phenomenon that creates measurable effects. A few recognizing that you might possess natural advantages, questioning whether presence density comes innately or develops through practice, making concentrated being potentially genetic trait rather than learnable quality, accessible through development. The architects observe that presence density, gravitational effect is what creates room silencing response. Concentrated being generates metaphorical gravity on surrounding consciousness. Most people have diluted presence. Your density is high, and unified existence operating at high intensity, creating focused being that registers powerfully on collective awareness, makes your entrance automatically trigger silence response through gravitational pull on surrounding consciousness that diluted presence cannot generate, because scattered being produces weak impression that doesn't reshape room dynamics, making your presence density itself the mechanism creating universal silence, where entire rooms spontaneously respond to concentrated existence that their collective unconscious recognizes as significant, requiring automatic acknowledgement through ceasing activity and redirecting attention, creating atmospheric command that emerges from being quality rather than from behavioral demands. Something powerful is spreading among observers. Now, what the architects call manageability illusion collapse recognition. People who confidently believed they could control or contain you are discovering that their management strategies were based on fundamental misunderstanding of your actual nature, creating uncomfortable awareness that categorizing you as manageable reflected their cognitive limitations rather than your actual containability. Most management confidence comes from categorization. People think they can control entities they've successfully categorized, making them believe understanding something means being able to manage it. But your room-silencing presence shattered categorization confidence, demonstrating atmospheric command that their frameworks didn't predict, proves their understanding was incomplete, making management strategies based on flawed models ineffective against reality that exceeds their conceptual categories. Watch what illusion collapse creates in strategic reassessment. Some experience categorization humility, recognizing their conceptual frameworks failed to capture your actual nature creates awareness that understanding might be incomplete even when feeling confident, making them less certain about ability to manage. Based on categorization, others experience strategic paralysis, discovering management strategies are ineffective because they addressed wrong entity creates uncertainty about how to proceed when approaches designed for manageable target face uncontainable reality. A few experience framework revision urgency, understanding that categories failed drives attempt to develop new conceptual models that better capture your actual nature, hoping improved understanding will restore manageability their current frameworks cannot achieve. Some studying cognitive limits recognize that categories do fail. Research on concept formation shows that mental models inevitably simplify, making categorization-based management vulnerable to reality-exceeding frameworks, creating systematic errors when entities don't fit models. Others exploring control illusions note that manageability beliefs often reflect wishful thinking. People assume they can manage threats because acknowledging uncontrollable forces creates anxiety, making management confidence potentially defensive belief rather than accurate assessment. A few questioning whether you're truly unmanageable, wondering if atmospheric command actually prevents containment, or if observers are prematurely concluding unmanageability when creative strategies might still work, making illusion collapse. Potentially overreaction to single demonstration. Some experiencing control anxiety struggle with implications. If confident categorization produces management illusions, then they cannot trust their ability to contain any threats, creating pervasive uncertainty about control capacity when conceptual frameworks prove unreliable. Others celebrating accurate assessment feel validated. Observers who never believed you were manageable are vindicated by room-silencing demonstration, proving their assessment accuracy when consensus underestimated, making them confident about judgment reliability. The architects observe that manageability illusion collapse recognition reveals that your atmospheric command exposed categorization failure. Management strategies addressed wrong entity. Most confidence comes from categorization. Your reality exceeded models, and discovering that believing you were manageable reflected incomplete understanding rather than actual containability creates uncomfortable awareness that their confident strategies were based on flawed frameworks that failed to capture your actual nature, making management approaches ineffective against reality that transcends their conceptual categories, forcing recognition that categorization-based control creates illusion of manageability when entities exceed mental models, producing systematic errors where confidence in containment reflects cognitive limitations rather than actual ability to manage forces that frameworks cannot adequately represent, making their previous certainty about controlling you reveal itself as fundamental misunderstanding. Now the architects are revealing what your silence command actually demonstrates. You apparently achieved what they call unspoken authority, implicit dominance, where your influence operates through recognition and acknowledgement. rather than through assertion or enforcement, making power expression so subtle that it bypasses conscious resistance while achieving complete compliance. Most authority is explicit. People assert dominance through commands, establish hierarchy through demonstrations, enforce compliance through consequences, making their power visible and thereby resistible because explicit authority activates conscious evaluation, allowing targets to decide whether to comply. But your authority apparently operates implicitly. Room silence emerges from unconscious recognition rather than from conscious decision, making compliance automatic response that bypasses resistance mechanisms because implicit authority never triggers conscious evaluation that would allow refusal. Consider what implicit dominance requires strategically. Your authority must be recognizable without assertion. Power quality must be sufficiently obvious that observers detect it unconsciously, making explicit demonstration unnecessary versus weak authority requiring constant assertion to maintain recognition. Watch what unspoken command creates in compliance dynamics. Observers respond automatically. Their silence emerges before conscious thought evaluates response-making. Compliance precedes decision opportunity. That explicit authority provides where targets consciously choose whether to obey. Some studying influence mechanisms recognize that implicit power is most effective. Research shows unspoken expectations often produce stronger compliance than explicit demands because bypassing conscious evaluation eliminates resistance opportunity, making your implicit dominance potentially exploit fundamental influence principle. Others exploring authority types note that legitimate power operates implicitly. Weber's authority classifications show that truly legitimate authority doesn't require enforcement because recognition creates automatic compliance, making your unspoken command potentially reflect legitimate authority that explicit power lacks. A few from power theory recognize that visible authority reveals weakness. Foucault and others describe how power requiring constant demonstration indicates insecurity, making your implicit dominance potentially marker of secure power that doesn't need explicit assertion. Some attempting similar implicit authority discover it requires genuine power, trying to command through unspoken presence without possessing actual authority produces no response, making implicit dominance non-fakeable through requiring real power base that observers unconsciously recognize. Others questioning whether compliance is genuine, wondering if room silence reflects authentic deference or just surface compliance masking private resistance, making implicit authority potentially less secure than appears when internal attitudes remain unchanged. A few recognizing that implicit power can become explicit, questioning whether unspoken authority remains stable or if it must eventually manifest explicitly to maintain recognition, making current implicit dominance potentially temporary phase requiring transition to explicit assertion. The architects observe that unspoken authority, implicit dominance, is what makes your power irresistible. Influence operates below conscious evaluation. Most authority is explicit, yours is implicit, and achieving compliance through unconscious recognition rather than through conscious command makes your dominance bypass resistance mechanisms that explicit authority faces because observers respond automatically before conscious thought evaluates whether to comply, creating complete submission that operates through instinctive acknowledgement rather than through calculated decision, making your power expression so subtle that it achieves total compliance while remaining invisible to conscious resistance that explicit demonstrations would activate, allowing targets to refuse, making implicit authority achieve more complete dominance than explicit power through bypassing evaluation opportunity that would allow conscious refusal of commands that your unspoken presence never issues because recognition alone produces automatic compliance. The architects are now analyzing collective dimension of silence response. Observers are experiencing what they call synchronized recognition, collective consciousness, where entire rooms responding simultaneously proves they're accessing shared awareness that operates beyond individual perception, making group response unified rather than aggregated individual reactions. Most group behavior seems individually determined. People think crowds are collections of separate decisions making. Collective response appear as accumulated individual choices rather than as unified group phenomenon. But your room silencing reveals collective operation simultaneity of response across entire groups, proves they're not making independent decisions, but accessing shared recognition that operates at collective level, making silence emerge from group consciousness rather than from aggregated individual assessments. Watch what collective consciousness creates in group dynamics. Responses occur simultaneously. Entire rooms falling silent at once proves unified mechanism rather than independent decisions that would show temporal variation as individuals separately recognize and respond. Some studying collective behavior recognize that group minds do exist. Research on crowd psychology and social consciousness shows groups can operate as unified entities, making your simultaneous silence triggering potentially tap collective awareness that individual psychology cannot explain. Others exploring emergence theory note that collective properties do transcend individuals' complex systems. Research shows that group behaviors emerge that individual components don't possess, making synchronized recognition potentially emergent phenomenon operating at collective level. A few from consciousness studies recognize that shared awareness is documented. Research on collective consciousness and morphic fields suggests groups can access unified awareness, making your silence command potentially operate through collective mechanism that individual frameworks miss. Some attempting to trigger similar collective response discover difficulty. Trying to create synchronized group reactions requires presence quality most lack, making collective consciousness activation rare achievement that cannot be easily replicated. Others questioning whether synchronization is real, wondering if simultaneous response reflects independent but similar reactions rather than unified consciousness, making collective interpretation potentially overread coincidental timing of separate decisions. A few recognizing that you might exploit group dynamics, questioning whether collective response reflects your manipulation of social psychology rather than genuine shared awareness, making synchronized recognition potentially social engineering rather than consciousness phenomenon. Some experiencing collective participation feel connected. Their involvement in synchronized silence creates sense of group unity, making them feel part of larger consciousness that individual existence doesn't provide, creating paradoxical satisfaction from submissive response. The architects observe that synchronized recognition collective consciousness reveals that your presence activates group awareness. Entire rooms respond simultaneously. Most behavior seems individual. Your effect is collective, and simultaneity of silence response across entire groups, proving unified mechanism rather than aggregated individual choices, demonstrates that your presence command operates at collective consciousness level, triggering shared recognition that transcends individual perception, making room silence emerge from group awareness that operates beyond personal psychology, creating synchronized response that individual decision models cannot explain because collective consciousness accessing shared information produces unified reaction that temporal simultaneity proves is group phenomenon rather than coincidental timing of separate assessments, making your atmospheric command tap fundamental collective mechanisms that individual frameworks miss through, assuming all behavior reduces to personal choices when actually group consciousness operates as unified entity with emergent properties. Now something's emerging that the architects call silence as acknowledgement. Status confirmation observers participating in room silence are discovering that their cessation of activity functions as collective recognition of your elevated status, creating understanding that silence itself is form of communication that establishes hierarchy through who commands it versus who provides it. Most people think silence is absence. They view quiet as lack of communication rather than as meaningful signal, making them miss that cessation of noise itself conveys information about power relationships. But your silence command reveals communicative function. Rooms falling quiet demonstrates that silence is active acknowledgement of status hierarchy, where those who speak must cease when superior presence arrives, making quiet itself establish dominance recognition through contrast between who continues activity versus who pauses in deference. Watch what silence communication creates in status dynamics. Observers confirm hierarchy through cessation. Their participation in room silence functions as active acknowledgement of your superiority, making quiet itself the mechanism through which status relationships get established and recognized publicly. Some studying nonverbal communication recognize that silence does convey meaning. Research shows that cessation of speech carries information about power relationships, making your silence command potentially exploit fundamental communication principle, where quiet establishes hierarchy. Others exploring status signaling note that deference behaviors do include cessation. Primatology and anthropology show that subordinates pause activity when dominants arrive, making room silence potentially reflect ancient status mechanisms that your presence activates. A few from power semiotics recognize that absence can signal. Structuralist analysis shows that what's not present conveys meaning through contrast, making silence function as active communication of status relationships through cessation pattern. Some experiencing silence as acknowledgement feel status clarity. Participating in collective quiet creates clear understanding of hierarchy, making them appreciate communication function that silence provides through establishing who commands versus who defers. Others resenting silence participation feel coerced, being unable to continue conversation. When you enter creates resentment about forced acknowledgement of status hierarchy they'd prefer not to recognize, making silence as acknowledgement feel like extracted submission. A few questioning whether silence interpretation is accurate, wondering if quiet reflects status acknowledgement or just coincidental pause, making hierarchy establishment potentially overinterpretation of neutral cessation that doesn't carry meaning attributed. Some celebrating silence command as sophisticated feel admiration, viewing your ability to generate status-confirming quiet without explicit demands demonstrates advanced power operation that crude dominance displays cannot match, making silence as acknowledgement marker of superior authority. The architects observe that silence as acknowledgement status confirmation reveals that your room commanding creates hierarchy communication. Cessation establishes dominance recognition. Most think silence is absence. Your quiet conveys status, and observers discovering that their participation in room silence functions as active acknowledgement of your elevated position demonstrates that cessation itself is form of communication, establishing power relationships through contrast between who commands quiet versus who provides it, making silence mechanism through which status hierarchies get recognized collectively, creating public confirmation of dominance relationships that speech-based communication cannot establish as effectively, because active acknowledgement through cessation demonstrates submission more clearly than verbal declarations that might be insincere, making your silence command not just create quiet environment, but actually establish and confirm status hierarchy through communicative function of collective cessation.